Oh, we are live. I think we're live. It just said, okay, I think we might be live. Hello, beautiful conscious creators. I hope that you have started your day with nothing short of health, wealth, peace, love, and light. I actually didn't really get the internet right. It's just that I went to go visit a friend and his Wi-Fi just happens to be like somewhat of a decent connection, so hence the reason why I'm able to go live today. Yeah, so today I just wanted to have a little conversation and engage with you on the topic around overcoming self-sabotage. But before we get into the episode, obviously I have to do like a song recommendation. And that song recommendation is going to be HMLT, State of Emergency. So, before we begin, I'm just realizing now that the internet, it's not showing me what it's supposed to be showing me on this side, but if you guys can actually hear what's happening and see what's happening in real time, just let me know. Just send a thumbs up or something, because I'm actually not sure if there's a lag, because there seems to be a lag between what's happening on my computer screen and my camera. But yeah, anyway, I think I'm just gonna get into the episode, and if it's not working well, it is what it is. I just have, the show must go on, you know? Yeah, so the idea behind overcoming self-sabotage is rooted in the fact that at times, not even at times, self-sabotage is rooted in the idea, in the concept that we are not yet a vibrational match of the things that we desire. Oh, Booty Zebra! Oh, Booty! Oh, thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, so we are not yet a vibrational match of the things that we desire. And what I mean by that is there is a certain level of misalignment, and I'll obviously get into it as the episode progresses, but being a vibrational match means that there's like dissonance. It means we are not yet embodying the thing that we see ourselves as being. We are not yet, it seems so far from us that we are not yet that vibrational match of the thing that we desire to be, the thing, the person that we are desiring to become. And under this umbrella of not being a vibrational match is what self-sabotage is rooted in. And I'm going to list a few things that have had sort of a more personal impact in my life, and the things that I can actually explain with more clarity and understanding so that it makes sense to you, because I can explain things as far as I have gone within myself, the things that I have seen, and I like, you know, the whole idea of psychoanalyzing and thinking, trying to understand how I am and how I got to where I got to. So those things are this idea of not being a vibrational match are the fear of success, number one. Secondly, it's our ego in almost like defense mode, the ego that's protecting us. And lastly, it's the lack of self-love. And I wanted to use the word self-hate, but I think hate is a bit too extreme. Some people don't necessarily have a sense of hate, but it's just there are parts of themselves that they don't necessarily love or have not yet learned how to love. And yeah, so under the guise of ego defending us, so our ego is attached to our unconscious mind. And in our unconscious mind, actually, before I dive a bit deeper, I'm going to go through explaining these things individually, and then I'm going to share how then to overcome it. And I'm also going to share the signs of how these things present themselves, because sometimes we are not necessarily aware. Like, we understand what is happening in our lives, but we're not necessarily aware or have a deeper understanding of the reasons behind why these things are happening. And yeah, so hence the reason why I'm gonna give an overview of the things that I'm sharing about. So number one, ego. Ego is always trying to defend us. Ego exists in the unconscious mind. I'm going to use the word unconscious. Yes, it is attached to our conscious mind as well, but in the unconscious mind, as children, we are sponges. We absorb things. We are like taking things in. So we formulate like initial impressions of the world. This is where, like, based on our surroundings, based on our parents, the things that our parents are saying to us, we absorb those things like sponges because we're formulating like the initial impressions. When we're born, we have no sense of understanding of the reality. We, as we are developing and growing, are absorbing these things as we go along, right? And so it forms our initial impressions of the world. And even when we're traumatized, it goes into the deep recesses of our mind. So everything is stored in the unconscious mind. The things that we cannot see or observe just as easily as you would think about yesterday's meal, because they are deeply instilled, deep somewhere there. Things that we cannot see, and they even appear in our dreams, because I don't want to get into dreams, but we resolve a lot of our things, the deep traumas in our dreams. But I'm digressing. Without getting into that, in understanding that our ego exists in our unconscious mind, that we know, because based on the fact that it stores the initial impressions, then it formulates who we become, who we are today. And so because this is the thing that we know, then the ego is prone to protecting what it knows. It wants to defend what it knows. So the ego is not necessarily our enemy. And there's a book called Ego is the Enemy, but the ego is not necessarily our enemy. The ego is there to defend what it knows, because in what we know, we feel safe. When you know something, when you can say, I've witnessed this and I've experienced this, you feel safe in its understanding, because your body, your emotional body, has a deep understanding and has experienced this thing that the ego won't, or the unconscious won't necessarily show you in like plain sight. Correct? So the ego will protect us. And in knowing that the ego will protect us, it protects us so that we can feel safe in our understanding. So that's how like the ego plays a role. And it also actually, I made a point here, is that sometimes when we formulate relationships in the world, the ego is also there to protect those relationships. Because imagine growing up with people, right? And then trying to detach yourself from those people. It's challenging to detach yourself from those people because they identify with the ego. They have a knowing and an understanding of the ego that you have. No, not necessarily the ego, the person that you are. And so by you shifting and changing, you are challenging these relationships that you have always known and have always coexisted in. So hence the reason why our ego will sabotage us, because it has to protect what it knows. And yeah, so moving on to the next thing. I went a bit too far down the ego, but yes, moving on to the next thing. The lack of self-love. Where there is self-love, there cannot be self-hate. And where there is self-hate, there cannot be self-love, because those things are not congruent. Those two exist in two different belief systems. Because where there is self-love, right, you have this sense of self-worth. You have the sense of feeling like you deserve the things that you desire. You deserve the things that you already possess, you have in your possession. And you also feel like you deserve the becoming that you desire to be, because you have this deep sense of self-worth. But where there is a lack of self-love, then it is attached to somewhat, or not even somewhat, it is attached to a negative self-esteem. The belief system behind it, even the internal conversations, the inner critic, the things that this inner critic will say to you, if it is deeply attached to a negative, this lack of self-love, the inner critic and the conversations that you will have will be very disgruntling and breaking of your spirit. Because of this rooted, this idea or this sense of not feeling worthy of the desires that you have within your heart. And so having this sense of self, or having this sense, or rather the lack of self-love, becomes conflicting when we want to dream. Because when you have a dream, right, it's easy to shut that dream down because you don't have this belief that it's possible for you. The sense of self, the lack of self-love, creates a negative self-esteem based on our inner critic. And as a result of that, the ability to dream becomes very challenging. It becomes difficult, because how can you dream of something that you know someday that it might not even happen for you? It makes you question the dreams that you have. It makes you feel self-doubt about the dreams that you have, because this inner critic is always telling you the opposite of what you want to believe about yourself. So hence the lack of self-love is attached to self-sabotage. So in knowing that, and lastly, we have the fear of success. Fear of success is very, it's self-explanatory. Like, it's the fear of the unknown. And when we fear the unknown, we don't move into the unknown, because we don't move into things that we fear. So those are the three things that I wanted to highlight under what self-sabotage actually is. And to pick up the signs is there any comments? Actually, I've been going, but are there any comments? Is there anyone that would like to say something? Zipraz, is there anything that you would like to say? Because right now, it's Zipraz who's here. This time lag is just, I won't be able to. Okay. Maybe I might not be able to pick it up in real time. But if you do say something, when I do hop on your question, then obviously I will answer it. Okay. So to continue. So how do we pick up on the signs of what self-sabotage, how do we know that this is self-sabotage? How do we know that we are in a space of self-sabotage? How do we recognize it? These are the few signs. When you procrastinate and you create any distraction possible. And it seems so simple, but the root of it is that it is self-sabotage. So procrastination, as an example, you're supposed to be studying for an exam, but you would sooner watch Netflix. You would rather watch Netflix and consume anything else. And then the minute these exams are over, then suddenly you have no motivation to watch Netflix. And the reason why, actually, I just thought of this now. I remember when I was in uni, if I was not prepared for an exam, if I didn't feel prepared for this exam that I had, right? If I didn't feel like I'm gonna be able to, like, you know, do the work and absorb the information on time for the exam, if I just didn't have enough information, then I would prepare less. But the more I knew about the subject, the more I wanted to know. And that, hence the reason why, like, it was a sign of this procrastination was a sign of even more self-sabotage. Okay, we have a question. Is it possible to hate one part of your body but still love yourself? Oh, wow. So in order to answer this question, I want to start off by saying that sometimes, right, we have this inner critic, like I mentioned before. We have this thing inside of our minds that speaks poorly to us, that does not know how to speak kind words to us. It does not know how to see itself in a loving way. So we have that part of ourselves in the mind. And it's not a lack of loving yourself, but it's the lack of being able to recognize how to love that part of yourself. Because knowing you are a very good person. Like, I've met you before, and you have a good heart. Your energy, it radiates goodness and kindness. So because your energy reflects that for other people, even just based on conversations that I've had with other people, like how you are receptive to a lot of people, your energy gives off the ability to love yourself. But those parts that you don't necessarily love or know how to love are just a conversation that you need to shift internally. So it doesn't mean that you hate yourself, because hating yourself just creates this negative aura around you, and people can pick up on self-hate because we all have insecurities, we all have, things that maybe we're not necessarily happy about. But it doesn't mean that we hate ourselves. It just means that we haven't learned how to love those parts that need our attention. We just need to shift the conversation on how we speak about those things. So I'll give you an example. Like, I grew up with eye bags. If anyone has noticed, I grew up with eye bags. And I didn't really understand, or as a kid, when you grow up, you don't really know how to like those things about yourself. But once I started speaking to myself and said, girl, you have eye bags and they're beautiful, and they make your eyes look big sometimes and maybe small sometimes, but I just started shifting the conversation just around the eye bags. But it didn't mean that I hated myself. It just meant I needed to learn how to speak kindly to my eye bags. Okay, yeah. So moving on. I hope that made sense. So another sign of self-sabotage is we make self-empty promises. So you'll promise yourself the world. You will promise yourself, everything. But those promises amount to nothing because you don't actually put the work in, for example. And it's understandable. At times, we feel overwhelmed because we want to achieve so much. We want to create so much more in our lives that we don't know what to touch first, what to hold first, what to actually work on first. And so we end up working on nothing because it overwhelms our spirit, knowing that we want to achieve all of these things, but we don't know where to begin. So we end up in these self-empty promises. And that again, my friends, is self-sabotage. And then also another thing, it's making up excuses. The first people, right? These 2 points somewhat align. The first people that we lie to is ourselves. You are the first person that will lie to you. You are the, I can go into the inner critic and how the inner critic is a liar and all of that stuff, because the inner critic does tend to not speak good on ourselves, on us, right? So the inner critic is a liar. It will lie about your potential. And people will say positive things around you. People will speak lovingly around you. But because you have this excuse that you can come up with, you can find a reason to push away these affirmations that people share with you, then in a way it is the mind affirming and confirming what others don't, what you believe about yourself. So what I'm trying to get to is that we'll come up with excuses, and the mind will find reasons why this excuse is actually a real thing. But it isn't necessarily always the real thing, because the mind will trick us into believing the things that we want to believe about ourselves, even though there is external conversation that says, no, but you're capable. If you don't see that in you, then you won't be able to do anything about it. And you'll find any excuse to justify why it's not possible for you, even though there are conversations and the people around you who are lifting you are saying, no, but it's possible. But when the mind is determined to say it's not possible for you, you will find a reason. The mind will create and it will provide evidence all around you to show you every reason why that whatever you're trying to achieve is not possible, because you have affirmed it within yourself first. So that's a sign. And the last sign is that you are not able to you're not able to ask for help, and you also tend to refuse the help when it comes along. So those are just the few signs of self-sabotage. And I just want you guys to understand that these are just coping mechanisms, because there are healthy coping mechanisms, and there's also like damaging coping mechanisms. So what I'm trying to teach here is the tools and the mechanisms that you can use and that you can apply in your life to develop the healthier healthier coping mechanisms, because all of them are these signs. When you procrastinate, it's a coping mechanism so that you don't feel this, you can distract yourself from this overwhelming feeling of the things that you want to achieve. So how to develop these coping mechanisms? What actions can we take in order to get out of our own way, in order to stop the BS and actually get to what we want to get to? And the big and umbrella thing, I guess, in terms of becoming a vibrational match of the things that we desire, is self-awareness. And people will say a lot of things about self-awareness. I'm not interested in all of those other things that people say. Self-awareness is important. Being aware of the things that are impacting us. Okay, so we're still good. Being aware and putting them out there so that you can see them, knowing them, putting them down on paper and saying, this is my actual problem. Being aware and seeing what the actual problem is and being able to speak about those problems, they start to lose their power over us. Because what is happening when we are self-aware? We are bringing things to light. those things that are hidden away. Say for instance, like if there's a trauma and it's again in the deep recesses of our mind, and maybe it has a tend to affect the relationships that we have, like we self-sabotage the relationships that we have because we're not, like we've experienced trauma in the sense of relationships, or like if maybe there was infidelity at home, then it creates a sense of fear of being able to love the next person, because what if they betray my trust and loyalty? So that's deep in the recesses of your mind. It's there. It's in the trauma. It's there. It's the trauma in there. So once you become self-aware of that specific trauma, then you're better able to handle it because you recognize what is actually happening. Okay, you're still good. It goes on and off and on and off. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Okay, yes. So becoming self-aware. The things that we are aware of lose their power over us. And this is a tool that you can use in order to manage the inner critic, that voice that wants to lie, that wants to tell us the things that we're not capable of, the like how we actually look, and the thing that inner critic, that voice inside of our minds that speaks not in alignment with the things that we're trying to become, the person that we're trying to become, the things that we're trying to achieve, our goals, our dreams. That inner critic, in order to manage it, you have to write it down. So I would recommend writing one thing down. Say for instance, like you mentioned here, if you hate one part of your body, okay, write down that body part, right? And write down like this lie. Put the lie down on paper. See it. You want, it's like, I don't know how to say it in English. I don't know what I can't quote it in English, but it's like wapotla, like we are potla. You're vomiting. You're excreting this thing so that you can see it, because once you start, like I said, once you're able to recognize what it is that you're saying about this part of your body, once you've written it down, then you're able to move on to the next part by writing down what you actually want to believe about that part of your body, about yourself, about your dreams, because you want, what we're doing here is changing our look and our perspective on things. So we need to bring them to light in order for us to be able to say, okay, now that I'm aware that this is what the problem is, this is how I can shift it and how I can approach my way of looking at it. So this is the lie. We've written it down. And then the next thing that we're going to do is write down what we actually want to believe about this lie, or what we actually want to change about this lie. And it's scary at first, I will admit that. In order to try adopt a new belief about yourself, a new belief in anything, a different way of thinking about anything. Like I said, remember when I told you about how relationships, the relationships that we have, the ego wants to protect those relationships. So in wanting to change, it challenges those relationships, because now it wants to, like, we almost have to break away from the relationships that we have developed. And that's scary, because where do we start? Where do we go? But I digress. So writing down the truth that you want to see within yourself, then you're moving into a space where, yes, it's scary, but I know where I'm going. I know this is what I want to lean into. And everything else that has always been attached to me, these relationships, yes, they might keep confirming this old negative self-belief, this old belief that I just want to let go of about myself. Yes, those parts of me are still attached to that. But because now I am aware of what this truth that I want to see in myself is, then by repeating that thing, by reading and affirming the new truth that you want to see and feel within yourself, by affirming this new belief that you want to shift in your mind, then it creates the distance from the old and brings us into the newness, into our becoming, into our worthiness, into our deserving. Because we've highlighted what we want to know about ourselves. And by affirming that thing over and over again, away from what we had always originally believed within ourselves, by affirming the newness, it will take some time to get to the other side, because it's the unknown. But it does happen. You do end up shifting into your new belief. I wanted to say our new belief, but yeah, actually it's a whole communal thing. Actually, this way of just how we can learn to talk to ourselves. It takes community to help shift, but it also starts with you first. And then, okay. Also, oh yes, I also wanted to say, it's because you're leading the conversation. When you're not aware of something, it's in charge of you. Or even if you're aware, but you're not shifting, or you're not writing down what it is that you want to believe about it, it's leading the conversation and not you. Until you decide that, actually, hey, this is something that I want to see in myself, and this is what I'm going to start seeing as truth. And by repeating it over and over and over again within yourself, even on days where it just feels like I should not be repeating this, it does not match. We are, again, back to how we started. We are trying to become the vibrational match of the things that we desire. So by knowing what it is that is in misalignment, the things that are just not in alignment of what we desire, and by highlighting it and then writing down what it is that we want to see, then we're starting to walk away from this and lean into this. Because we recognize where the shift needs to happen. Yeah, and yeah. So also under self-awareness, it's just stop lying to yourself. Like I said, the first person that lies to you is you. And that's that on that. Because once you stop lying to yourself, then you can tell yourself truths that hurt. And it's challenging to tell yourself those truths because they hurt you first. But it is in going through that pain of being hurt by the ugliness that we see in ourselves, by just sitting in that ugliness that we see in ourselves and saying, oof, sure, this is what I feel on the inside, or this is what I think on the inside. And just being able to look at that and saying, sure. And knowing that it's not you, it's not true of you. Yes, maybe things may have happened in the past, but it's not true of your today. It's not true of your becoming. It was. It's not is, it's not the becoming. It was. When you're able to sit with the ugly from the past and say, damn, this is who I was, or this is, sit in the ugly. By sitting in the ugly and knowing the end, then you can let go of the ugly and lean into the end. Yeah, but I'm going into a different conversation now. But yes, that is what self-awareness takes. And then another thing that you have to do is actually put those things into practice. It's enough, yes, people can, you can watch a lot of things, you can consume a lot of content, but if you're not putting those things into practice, if you're not actually fully engaging with the work of shifting yourself, changing, and doing the transformation, doing that inner work, if you're not in the practice of it, then nothing will change. Nothing will change. You can have all of the information in the world. That's the other thing. I used to consume a lot of information, but without practicing that information, without practicing that knowledge, without putting that knowledge into practice, it meant nothing. It was just useless information in my brain. Not useless, because it's gotten me this far, but by not using it and putting it into practice, it was just as useless as knowing facts about nothing, basically. Yeah. And then, next thing you can do, manage your environment. If you want to lose weight, do not have junk in the house. Okay, but then, I will say this. I have this healthier approach when it comes to, I feel like the way I'm doing it is healthy for me. Yes, I can have junk in the house because I've learned to discipline my mind and I've learned to discipline myself when it comes to just food in general. But that was more so about changing my relationship with food and how I looked at it and what it made me feel and the things that I ate, the things that I allowed into my body. So that was, I could say yes, managing your environment by not having junk in your environment. But in my case, I do have junk in the house. I don't keep a lot of junk, but there is enough. I just know how to manage the food that I have, or the junk, so to speak, because I've shifted my relationship with the junk food. So managing your environment is more so about putting things in place, putting measures in place. If you want to get fit, put tackies. I've heard this analogy once. I can't remember. I think I was young. They said put tackies by your door. And make sure that, okay, as soon as you're about to leave, then you see these tackies and you're like, oh, okay, I actually need to go for a run, or I just need to go for a walk. It conditions your mind into, it places you, or it gives you the opportunities to say, oh, this is what I can do right now. Oh, okay, I'm putting a measure in place that will help boost this goal that I have for myself. Putting tackies, if I want to get fit, I'll put tackies there and I'll see them every day. And every day I walk out, there's something that will click in my mind that, oh, tackies. And eventually, slowly but surely, I'll start using the tackies. And then, seek professional help. But this it's a very sensitive one for a lot of people, because some people aren't keen. I can go into saying the guys are not necessarily keen on seeking professional help because it creates this narrative. There's a narrative rather around seeking professional help and actually seeing someone who can help you on to understand the workings of your mind. And there's a lot of shame. It has just a very bad reputation. But when you decide that you want to see things for yourself, and there are things that are too deeply rooted that you cannot even make sense of, seek the professional help, because they will guide you, and then you are able to observe through their guidance. They will help you navigate what it is, what channel that you need to take or need to look at. And then once you have this observation, then obviously it goes back to, because you're aware of it, now you can shift. Now you can write down a truth that you want to see. Now you can write down a truth that you want to believe. the things that you want to shift, because they've guided you into seeing what the actual root of the problem is. And then I've got my notes here because a girly came prepared. Okay. Last but not least, in becoming, again, back to this umbrella. In becoming, oh wait, look at this. It looks like an eye. Look at this. I'm playing, but the last one is the most important one. And that is, you have to trust God. You have to, it can be the universe, it can be God, it can be the unknown, whatever it is that you want to label it. This unknown. You have to trust God. Because when we find ourselves too in control of everything, then we're not trusting of the process. We're not, I mean, it's easy for me to say not trusting of the process, but really, faith and believing that things will work out for you in the best way possible, and just being able to let go even when you're dreaming, let go even when you're doing the work, by being able to say, okay, I can drop this and let things play out how they need to play out, because you trust this God, this unknown. You have the faith. It's about having the faith, putting your faith in something that you hold dear to your heart. By having that faith, you're better able to overcome the self-sabotage, because you understand that even the things that overwhelm me, even the things that show up that might not be, that might be discouraging, that, when you're working towards something and the self-sabotage tells you that your dreams are not possible, this negative inner conversation, even in all of that, when you have this sense of trust in the unknown, in God, the universe, in just a higher power, then you're able to release yourself from carrying the weight of everything, because you know that you don't have to have control of everything. And that is where I'm going to leave this episode. Yes. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Buddhi, I hope this Wi-Fi, I'm so sorry, Buddhi, if there was a lag. I'm really sorry. I tried. Maybe I'll get better Wi-Fi access, but I did try. I am trying. And yeah, thank you for listening all the way to the end. I don't know who this other co-current viewer is, but also thank you to you two for viewing this episode. If anything, I will answer the questions after. I'll answer the questions after, I'll answer in the comments, and I'll try to find a better way to get internet access. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening all the way to the end. My name is Obakeng, and I am your accidental therapist. That was our first live, guys. Isn't that exciting?